There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital, the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
Hello, cousins. Thank you for hanging out today. As you can see, I'm flying solo because our own Mr. Mayor is off doing diplomacy and music. He's getting his Woody Guthrie vibes on, making some friends, talking some shit, doing some things, and most of all, being his great entertaining self. If you are new to the show, that theme song is courtesy of Mr. Mayor, and you can check out music just like that and anywhere that music is done. So he would definitely appreciate that. He and I are both independent creators, so it's difficult to get the word out some of the time about what we do. But every like helps, every download helps, every stream helps, every sale helps of all the things that we do. So that keeps us above the ground and eating, so that we can continue to create things. And we don't get paid for doing this show. We have none sponsors, so you know that the shit that comes out of our mouth is not dictated by capital. So maybe someday though. So we don't know. It depends on. It's kind of hard to envision a company wanting to get behind an anti-establishment show. So I don't know. I guess that we can hope that that happens one day, but I'm really not gonna hold my breath on that one. But so thank you for hanging out, keeping me company today. Um, whether it's me or the both of us, we like to check in with the chat and see what you guys are up to. We're glad that you made it another week. We hate that we have to live like, oh, we made it another week. That's great. The time that you will never get back in your life. But that's kind of the way things are right now. And we're hoping the best for everybody, and that you're making it and you're finding maybe little inroads to thrive and not just full survival mode all the time. So yeah. I think that's where we are at this point. It's we're all in survival mode, but if we can just try and not hate every moment of everything all the time, then they can't get you. That's really where we are. It's almost 4th of July, which I think a lot of us on the communist side of things are not super juiced about. And I'm hoping that means that, like, when it's over, we can stop with this America 250 bullshit. Like, I'm so tired of it. Like, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear about it. Shut the fuck up. No more of this stupid shit. Like, let's move on with our lives. This was a stupid thing to celebrate in the first place, and it's been basically a completely co-opted fiasco all of the Trump administration anyways. You don't really even hear anybody talking about it that isn't on the right and trying to make some big thing out of it, when because basically to everyone else it means nothing and there's not any reason to celebrate. So like let's move on. Let's move on with our lives and not have to keep talking about this. I don't see any reason to keep talking about it after July 4th. Like there's no more. All done. Let's be done. So hopefully we'll get lucky on that front. So yeah, as I mentioned, Jared's off doing his thing, and hopefully meeting a lot of cool people and who are enjoying his stylings and the word of Jared. And we appreciate that he gets to go out in the world and do these kinds of things and talk to people and make new friends, and I hope he's having a great time. He's back in his hometown, so I think that he's going to be having a good time. He's able to kind of decompartmentalize what we do here a little bit. Like he doesn't have to live it all the time. Sometimes he gets to get away from it, so that's a good thing. And for this week, since it's just me, and I just kind of tend to pontificate on my solo episodes, I'm kind of getting into this story that, it's not something new. Like this has been going on since industrialization happened, and we might follow up on it, next week or in some subsequent episodes, so that Jared can contribute his thoughts to this. But I'm gonna kind of stick to the same thing here because we have a whole lot of feeder stories. It's like, oh, everything's connected now, and sometimes we feel like we get too conspiratorial on this show because we don't really intend to do that, but we also don't have a choice because after the Epstein files broke and when we found out eating people for fun and like all the things about that, like everything's on the table at this point. It's what we always say on the show, is everything is on the table because everything that you never thought would be real for real is real for real. So, like nothing really, there's nowhere else to go. When you reach that stage in humanity, there's nowhere else to go. So, this is something that if you want to, essentially it's this, we're still dealing with the Epstein class, and we're always going to be because they're, above any kind of prosecution or any kind of any kind of being taken to task for their conduct and the things that they have done, and that puts us obviously at a disadvantage. And again, people tend not to realize their power because we've lived generation after generation after generation, especially in the United States, of being completely disenfranchised more and more and more. If you just look back to your childhood, things were, significant. I'm not saying they were good, but they were significantly different than they are now. We seem to be on the rocket ride to the bottom on how bad things can get and how much control of our lives can be given over to capital and capital and value can be extracted from them. So, things are not good and they're not going to get better, essentially. And I maintain that we have reached the zenith of collapse. I don't think Jared is as enthusiastic about saying so, but I think, well, I mean, neither of us want that, but it's just that I think that we have reached that. I think when we look back in terms of, in history, we will say, okay, it happened, the fall of the United States happened, between 2025, 2026. And again, I have to theorize on that, but I think that there's really nowhere else to go. When we got to the Epstein point and then and everything was real. And once again, there was like a 3 million document dump on that. And then everybody just stopped talking about it. But it was only a drop in the bucket based on what they're actually still sitting on. And if what we heard, if what they let go, the depravity and the insanity of that stuff, you can guarantee that there is so much worse stuff that is not coming to light. And it's very strange to me that there were no hacker groups that made any real effort to kind of get into this and make this stuff public. Everybody was just like, meh. Everything sucks. I got to go to work. And just as if it felt like, like you wonder if like when you watch an alien invasion movie, it's like, oh, or, why is there so much traffic? Where's everybody going? To work. They're going to their jobs because like, no, still, it doesn't matter if a spaceship is literally over your head, beaming up people next to you. People are still going to just keep doing because they're stuck in the loop of having to do and not really caring that there's such a bigger picture that they should, that we are a social contract. We should be contributing to the fabric of things and focusing on living better lives, but we have really usurped the boundary of being able to do that at this point. We have, I think, lost control of any real agency that we would have over ourselves. And it's not just, fear of consequence. It's not just fear of what might happen if I this or if I that, or if I say or if I do, or which obviously plays a role, because we're being censored, we're being surveilled, we're being told you can't say these certain words and you can't do this certain thing, whatever. So that leaves us as just kind of at the stuck point of disinterest and disenfranchisement that kind of meets in the middle, where people are not really seeing, any that things can get better because they can't under these conditions, but they also don't care enough to do anything about it. So, with that said, it really does appear that that the apathy that the Epstein class has bred into society for so long is really now working to their benefit. And that's what I'll probably be talking about most of this episode. Because what am I meaning? What am I meaning? Am I just talking vaguely, or do I have a point? I actually have a point. And that point is that there's a consolidation of things happening right now. There's a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of feeder points that are going into what's happening in our society, in life. And it's not just on the local level, like the national level, let me say, but it is on the international level as well, because there's no reason for, why stop there, right? Like, if these people have more money than God, like, obviously they are going to use it to their advantage. So we have all the usual suspects, your Peter Thiels, your Elon Musk, Bill Gates, all the people are involved in this. So this is where it starts to sound conspiratorial, but there really has not been like any kind of cover up or any kind of attempt to hide any of this. And I'm not meaning the Epstein files specifically. What I'm talking about is we are now, and I will refer you also, if you want some more detailed information on this, to look into More Perfect Union's coverage of this story. They had a pretty comprehensive story about, what I'm getting into, which is that essentially what's happening, what's already underway, and then this is going to make a lot of sense, I think, if you haven't really connected these dots, is that so the Epstein class now is consolidating their efforts, even though probably just one of them could do this, but like they're all interested in this idea. And we did see some of this come out in the files, but what they're essentially doing is they are creating privatized city states. Okay, so what's that? And they're using AI to do this. Okay, so like here's like, why does everything doesn't like, it's all connected, because it is. So if you could set aside the idea of conspiracy and look at what's actually happening right now, and like I said, check out More Perfect Union's story on this. It's a lot more information that I could really give you at this moment. They've got names, they've got dates, they've got documents. They do the work. They put the work in. They're really good. But I'm going to kind of give you an overview, and then you could take that information and go and do what you will with it. So what we're looking at is that throughout the world, and primarily in more impoverished locations in the world and more war-torn places in the world, specifically, this is going down in Gaza, this is going down in the Philippines, this is going down in a lot of the global south. The global south is a lot of places you can set up these scenarios, and not a lot of people are watching, and nobody's getting in the way of it, because there's nobody going to get in the way. If a billionaire rolls into your town and starts throwing money around and building infrastructure, but they're doing it in this one particular area, you're not going to get a lot of resistance to that, right? So it's really easy to set up shop in somewhere that is going to be in need of attention, of finances, of what have you, of commerce, of this. Okay, so what is a city state? Now, this is something that you can call it a nation state, a city state, a corporate town, but these things are essentially or these private equity companies who are taking over everything, and these AI companies, the tech billionaires, because we've moved into a new industry. It's like industrial revolution. It's like the industrial revolution, Jesus, the industrial revolution, of yore. But now we know we're in the tech age and things are changing again. And so what these things are, just on the surface, are essentially private cities that are funded and erected, that are for profit and do not have social services, like at all, any kind, anything you name. There's not, everything is for profit. There is no social service, because everything is essentially run by AI. At that point, that is the grand scheme of things. So why do you need 911 if you've got AI and surveillance on every single person, every single corner, every single room of every single house of the city that you have created? So keep that in mind. And it's not just that, like, oh, they're just playing, they're just playing Monopoly on the board. No, these are small ish places that they're setting up to basically run the tests on and figure it out. And we know one in particular is Elon Musk's Star City, which is based around, oh, and then everybody works at at SpaceX and my corporations and things, and it was just, again, historically, these things not good. So this has been tried and failed over the course of 300 years of history here. But you've got to look at the bigger picture, that when these things have been done, it's generally been done on a small scale, and it's failed every time very miserably. But now are in the area of the billionaires and trillionaires, which can drive capital in such a way that there's nothing that people can do to stop it, and they basically can use the world as their playground, which we know they were intending to do and trying to do through what we did find out in the Epstein files. These people believe that they are going to create population control and decrease population through what eugenics, essentially, and starving people out, and putting laws into place that enslave people to their companies, to their holdings, and then to them personally. They believe that they're going to live like world kings, even more than they already are, at the expense of all other people. So what we really have happening here is sort of like a threefold situation. So they're setting up these kind of, let's call them experimental, because they're not really like up and serious, like, oh, we're taking this seriously yet. And that's where it kind of gets sounding conspiratorial. So we're basically are seeing where everything is going into this. So basically we are talking about, okay, they're setting up the infrastructure, they're building a city, and this idea has been, this specific plan, headed and funded by Peter Thiel and several of other of his cohorts. This goes back to in the early 2000s, wanting to set up a colony, essentially, in the ocean, like build build an island, essentially, make an own island. It would be completely private. It would not like a paradise like Epstein Island, but like a working town, but outside of the scope of any kind of policing or government, because this in itself is an anti-government move. And you would think, like, oh, well, they can't do that, but you got to take your old hat off and you got to think about how things are now, because they are, as part of the way that they're making this work, we already know that they own the United States government. They own all the Western governments. They own anyone that they want if anything gets in their way. So it's a very much of a why are you hitting yourself situation, because as we constantly see Congress and even representatives on the local levels and councils, all the way up to the president, these things are being manipulated by money into writing policy that favors these gigantic corporations, specifically the tech industry, because we have really pivoted beyond computers and phones, and there's really only so much you could do with that before we got into this AI nonsense era, and they know that nobody wants it, but they want it. So it doesn't matter if you don't want it. It doesn't matter if corporations got dollar signs in front of their eyes and thought, we'll replace all of our staff with it. Oh, wait, actually, it's super expensive and it doesn't fucking work. Great. They don't care. That is not important to them. That is a scam that they were able to sell to, everybody in the world, basically, in most world governments, because they are going to be using it to serve their own purposes. And so we have the setting up of these city states, which ultimately the idea of that would be to expand globally. So well, you can't do that. There's zoning laws, there's rules. You can't go cutting down the national forest. Well, interesting how, these types of rules have been on the books for a very long time. And then suddenly we start rewriting about what you can do where and how you can do it. And then the rules about, we're really relaxing what the EPA can do and the FDA can do. And we're not gonna look about, we're gonna stop paying any attention to anything that might get in the way of them doing what they want. So we have them using their money to set themselves up, then using their money to influence government to essentially nullify itself. So there's two prongs of that, right there. And then they throw your life into such miserable chaos that they ultimately get you to become compliant, because then they make these things sound great and fantastic, and then you accidentally become a libertarian because you're like, all right, no laws, no government, free movies, yay. And that is absolutely not how this works, because you are essentially you are agreeing to live in a stateless state of complete and total surveillance and servitude to these corporations, to these people, to these ultra billionaires, which are only going to make them worse and more evil. Think about if you were like, oh, well, here's like this really great place. Everything outside the place is horrible, but this is supposed to be really great. Your dome city, right? Like this is the future. This is the way of it. The AI is the future. You can't get out of it. So what do you go and get when you go into these? Well, obviously you don't own anything. You don't get to own anything. You have to subscribe to your car. You have to subscribe and rent any kind of domicile or apartment that you live in there, and then you aren't necessarily guaranteed any kind of work, so you're beholden to whatever you are told to do or made to do. Now, this is the rap that communism always got, like, oh, you can't do communism because then you don't have any free will, and then they make you work for the state and they make you do all this bad shit that you don't want to do, and you never know what you're contributing to. But they obviously have no interest in spreading the wealth or improving anybody's lives. It is obviously a move for global control to set themselves up to basically be the dictators of the world. Now, obviously, we know that is, maybe I should say obviously more times, obviously, that we know there's not, a gigantic amount of these people, but we do know that this 1% of people do control more capital and are getting an upward transfer of wealth more than all of the rest of the population of the world. We already know these things. These are the statistics. This is what's going on. This is how it's happening. And this is the kind of mess that we're dealing with. So this is the future we're looking at. And then again, this answers the question of like, okay, so what's this data center situation going on here? Like, why are they so able and willing to throw data centers into people's neighborhoods, make them bigger than an entire state? Why is this happening at rapid rates, yet we can't manage to get a functioning rail system? Why are bridges and roads crumbling? Why is the homelessness epidemic out of control, like the home ownership epidemic? Why can't anybody afford food? All of these things are playing out right in front, yet there always seems to be endless amount of money for these AI data centers, and nobody really, I mean, people do, but I think on the whole, if you're looking at population, people don't really know what these things even are. So if we look into our past, these AI data centers have always been around since 50 years, probably, since we started entering into the computer age. And what they used to be known as were server farms. Sometimes they were offshore, sometimes they were, domestic, but they were basically empty warehouse buildings with just a few people walking around where data was moved, processed, stored, right? And that was the case, for about the past 50 years before any kind of AI movement on them. So then this terminology of AI data center changed and it became like that's what surfer farms were like suddenly. But they also had this more nefarious angle to them, because why are you trying to build it in this neighborhood, ruin this neighborhood, ruin these people's lives? Why are you trying to make these things that, like, put off the heat of a nuclear weapon, when we're being told to save water and use paper straws? Like, this makes no sense. Like, we know we were at a critical point in our history about there's no more space here for fucking up the environment. Like, it is at a critical crisis point where if something isn't done, then we're going to, like, literally fry the planet and everybody on it. And the planet will be fine, but everybody's going to die to make that happen. So okay, so we're just like, oh, we're letting off all the nukes suddenly because, like, why? And we know that these are almost exclusively controlled by feeder corporations or giant corporations that belong in some way or are funded in some way by this Epstein class of people, this 1% class of people. They are the ones dictating that this happens to you in your areas. There is a reason why Bill Gates is the largest owner of farmland in this country, because these people are doing shit that suits themselves to essentially create a new world order. Where have you heard that one before, guys? So that's, what we're looking at here. So if you take the issue of data centers and you say, okay, well, other countries can manage to do this, but the United States are just throwing them up in everybody's backyard. We're killing the earth with, and town councils everywhere are just saying, yeah, do it. Even though people are showing up and saying, do not fucking do this. Do not do this. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Because those people are being paid the same way as on this tiny little local level. They're being paid off the same way as all the way up the chain of how government works. We no longer have a functioning government, right? Okay. And this goes back to when, part of the government decided that it would be all right to, blow the head off of a president in the middle of a parade and do it 4 years later to his brother. When you do that, you lose control. There is nowhere to go but down. So at that point, when there was even just the smallest pushback, because if you look at what the Kennedys were about, it was the smallest amount of pushback that the government could really get. And then they were like, nope, not going to do it. So one branch ate the other branch, and then we ultimately ended up here. That's really how that happens. It was just this rapid decline. It doesn't seem rapid because we're talking about going back to like 1963, but we have been historically in a rapid decline if you look at the span of history. And again, we've mentioned this before. Countries only tend to last, or empires only tend to last around 250 years. Interesting, right? So, and you can look into history for that kind of a thing. And they always basically end the same way. Sometimes it's bloody, sometimes it's more just dissolving. You can get into your history about that. When you look at the Roman Empire, how that broke up, it mostly just broke into little pieces like actual states. And then you had a lot of despots, and you had a lot of stupid, useless kings everybody was fighting each other for territory. And then it ultimately just kind of went away. Yeah. But then when you look at things like the French Revolution and the Bolshevik Revolution, those were in direct response to their government. They were still in the feudal system. Their government, essentially terrorizing them. And a similar thing happened with the last big empire. The British Empire broke up because they were all over the whole world, everywhere. And then basically all the people, like, literally, like, get the fuck out. We are going to cut your fucking heads off. And then that's how that happened. That happened in India. It happened in Africa. Everywhere that they had these holdings, the British got chased the fuck out of. So there's no real good way for a empire to collapse. And now we're seeing, at the time of this happening, we're seeing this global rise at the same time of the United States fall as a nation, because again, we don't have any of our own industry. We survive only as like a bully industry where we take and control other people's ability to feed themselves by censoring their grain supplies or their manufacturing ability, and making them buy from us to do it, or making them go through us to do it. And then taking that kind of bully approach has left this country completely empty and unable to really do anything. So that now the only way that there's any way to make any money on the national level is through war. And that's why America just does war now. That's the only thing that America does anymore. The United States is just war. So that obviously is not a winning strategy. You have Trump a few weeks ago going to China and President Xi going, yeah, we're thinking about putting some money into manufacturing in the United States because it's a failing country. What? Oh my God! What? Like that? Like how the turntables have turned, guys? Like how the things have changed here. So but that's exactly what's going on. Nobody says that about a prosperous country. Look at all the stuff, the good stuff we're talking about China here. And Jared just a few weeks ago was in China, and we had a couple of episodes where we talked about all of that, about his experience, and he went to some of the more lesser known places and visited some more I don't want to say rural, but just like lesser gigantic cities, and kind of saw what was life was just like outside of like we not using like any kind of influencer type filter on this, but just like a person who goes there and sees. And he was also able to perform there. He was able, to meet people, to talk to people. And this is the kind of thing that, it was just like, this is literally how they're living. It's 1,000, even just in these regular places that are not particularly special or well known. They're 1,000% better than anyone in America, United States has seen, like basically in their entire life. So using that, methodology, we say like, well, okay, how did we get here? How did this happen? So when, this specifically starts a couple of decades ago, where these people started to rise to power, capital power. And then they are now taking that capital, and then they're starting to figure out like, okay, well, when we get to the point where we're so wealthy that there's no one who can stop us, what do we do? Okay, then we start building our own cities, and then we expand on those cities, and then we start using the government, the United States government, and to a greater extent the Canadian government and the British government, to do our bidding, and essentially using the government to cut its own throat, because what we're going to do is lessen its ability to govern. We're going to make them give up, bribe them into giving up public lands for us, bribe them into lessening any kind of regulation that would stop us, and making it so that ultimately we can control with our own currency, which ultimately became like crypto. What we have now is crypto. So and then we will take that methodology and we will use this to act like it's something better, and we will make it seem like something better, so that anything outside of that, everything at this point, is so untenable and so awful that these people, you and me, everybody, will have no option but to be part of this thing. And we'll make it seem good, but it won't be, even if they even bother for that, because I feel like a couple of generations down the road, like they won't even bother to make it seem good. It's just going to be, this is it. This is all you've got. This is the only thing. This is the way people live. So, and then again, that takes away any kind of social responsibility or social service, because then everything is for profit and they can make money off of every single aspect of everything, like that they are doing now. So when I come back around town and talk about data centers again, because I brought that up in the first place to say like, okay, so that's also playing a major role. They want to, we know that we have been running the internet all this time. It hasn't really improved in any significant way. There's no real new bunches of people on suddenly, that we need these AI data centers to support that. That's basically, remained stagnant, as has our, anything to do with culture or living has essentially remained stagnant. But the thing that has changed in that way is that these same people are heavily invested in mass surveillance. And that is something that they want to ultimately do to just every single person. They want your car to watch you. They want if they're monitoring everything in your car, they can monitor if you've gained or lost weight by how much you sit on the seat, how much you weigh when you sit on the seat. They can like look at you, like what you're doing, what you're listening to, what you're saying, like it's just stuff. Every time you on anything at any point say, click agree, and you didn't read through the entire thing, which you have a choice anyway, if it's something that you need to do, then you have agreed to be surveilled, and you have agreed that they can sell your shit to each other back and forth, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we know that there's obviously a more nefarious reason for the data centers, but even that, even if it's a mass surveillance situation plus the internet, it still doesn't really equal out to how fast and how big and how much that they are building these things, right? And they could seemingly do it overnight, but so it's like, what is the ultimate goal of this? Well, that is it. You do need that much space and that much power to run these city states, these privatized cities, essentially. And when I say city, that's just the start of it. Ultimately, we're talking about wanting to do global expansion, and these things, as I said earlier, have already started to be erected in the global south. And there are, in more places that need the economic development, because they can pitch to them, okay, we're coming in, we're going to build this great whatever, and then ultimately it's to ensnare people in. And in the old days, we used to call that a cult. So, a bunch of promises about great living in a different country that you could barely even point out on a map. And it's also no coincidence that when we are seeing in real time Gaza get leveled, that this is going to pop up there too, if it hasn't already begun. I don't specifically know about that they've started to build that yet, but it's happening, because what we ultimately have is all these different feeder issues. And it's like, okay, so if that's the case, that's what's going. Oh, it's not if, it is. But when we take the need for all that power to run cities and to process crypto and things, because again, we're not talking about moneyless society, we're not talking about communism, we're talking about a full for-profit capitalistic slave and master scenario, where we are the slaves to them, the masters, and putting us all in a situation where we feel like, at least at first, like there might be a benefit to doing it, or that it would be better than the way things are. If you come to our city, you don't have to do laws. If you come to our city, there's money for everybody. If you come to our city, you could work or you're not work. If we're making these, we're getting to the point where very soon they're going to start making promises and advertising these types of things, and that will again continue the expansion. But it's not, obviously it's going to be a slavery system, because they want to, this is ultimately a move to nullify the government. Now, we have talked quite a bit about, I like to say shadow government, but Jared always tells me that's wrong. It's dual power is what that's called. Establishing dual power, to wherein one then ultimately can overtake the other. And that's what we're looking at, because that is the ultimate end game of this. Is we're not talking about, oh, we made a city, or we made a city, oh, we made a city. No, we're talking about global domination through capital. And that is the new generation of what we're looking at. And the people behind it are these Epstein people doing this. So it's not like, our best of all people who could be doing such of a thing. So we are talking about, it might sound small, or we might think, I haven't heard of this, or this sounds like crazy. It shouldn't sound crazy. That should make much, if you're paying attention to how things are going, that should make a lot of sense to you about where things are going, how things are going, and why all these super stupid things all seem, why do we need so many data centers? Because they're going to control these cities. Why do we need to be giving up public land? Because we need more stuff to build on where nobody's looking. Why do we need to relax all these rules and regulations around seemingly everything? Because they're paying the government to do that for them, so that nobody can make any kind of argument. Why are they, you can go down the line. Why is everything trying to get people, like force people into crypto and away from cash specifically, even just digital payment? Why is everything trying to move away from to cash? Because they want to make sure they can track your movements in every way and know exactly where every dime goes. Well, and in a way, and that's where the lines get a little bit blurred, because what they're hoping that you do is, and what they're we used to I don't know, you see it so much anymore. I don't see it so much anymore, but we're seeing a lot of people on, who are Democrats or Republicans who are now like saying like, I don't agree with either one. Both are bad. I'm not part of this. They're not necessarily saying I'm a communist now. Some are, some are, but mostly people are just like, no, I'm not in, I'm independent. I'm not in on this. I'm not in this. And then, it's an election will come up and then suddenly they're like, oh, I love this guy. Let me suck your dick. I love you. I love you. I love you forever. And you're like, what changed from yesterday to today that made you do this? Because they're stuck in the loop of how things used to work. We all basically are, and we've never been offered a reasonable alternative. But you are seeing a lot of people in one way or the other walk away from the traditional system, even if they keep pulling you back in, maybe. But in general, people are walking away from this, right? And the government knows this. But the government also knows that being that they all are purchasable at this point, and it's all a system of bribery, they are nullifying themselves. These billionaires and now trillionaires are using the government to censure itself and take away its own power, because we used to look to the government, not that it was a good thing or shining hill thing or true tried and true or anything good, not that bribery is new, but there were we all know obviously like there were more stringent laws about things that like protections on certain things and the way things work. But now the only laws that seem to exist are disenfranchisement laws that make life worse and harder on just regular people. And we know that the quality of life and the way that we've been forced into living is not normal and does not even hardly compare to any time in the past of the United States, because at that point something would ultimately change. The government was still in control. There were rich people, there were donors, there was bribery, there was corruption, but never on the level where there are now a class of people who are so wealthy between it just alone, let alone between them, that they now can afford to dictate global policy, right? There is no government on the planet, really. I mean, maybe China, maybe Russia, just given the size and scope that can really fight that, right? Like or it's only for a limited amount of time as this entity, this Epstein entity grows in power and expands on their holdings and gets even bigger and more powerful, because the money alone doesn't make them powerful. The way that they're using it makes them powerful. So when you start off a couple decades ago with an idea of like, let's build a city in the ocean, and libertarians are like, let's build a city in the ocean, no laws, no government. And then, things start to go from there. Like, okay, well, let's get bigger, let's expand, let's make it happen. And then we could get down the road to here. And then we're in an era where these people are literally controlling everything that we do and say and hear and be and as our existence. But we're looking at, but we're not looking at that, as a whole, as a society of people. We're still looking to the government. And you used to see a lot of on social media people going, do something. You always saw that trending, right? Do something when some horrible policy would pass. Well, until people realized to do something, when they would be telling like Democrats to do something, like, why aren't you doing something? Or Supreme Court to do something. You guys, they're all on the same fucking team. They're all the same people. They're all for sale. They're all beholden to these corporations and to these actual Epstein people. They are Epstein people. Okay, they're part of it. Even if they're on like the fart level, they are part of this. They are there for this. They are part of it, and they want to be even higher up on it. So you have these power hungry motherfuckers who are like, would take anything from anybody, have like no interest in serving the public in any kind of a way, and are completely ready to go. That's how they get in there. Mostly nepotistically, they get in there in some way, and it doesn't have to be familial, but mostly somebody who knows somebody. And then we've talked about this a bunch, how the government works. If somebody gets too mouthy or somebody starts causing a problem, they get unplugged. Somebody new gets plugged into their place that is compliant with the system, right? So we start looking at all of this, and if you take a step back and look at everything, you will say, okay, of this time in history, this is the most powerless seeming government that there's ever been. Then not because they have been, the foreign governments have come in and done war on them so bad and messed up their economy that now they are powerless. No, they have sold it, and this again in big part thanks to the Reagan administration, made the government for sale and cleared all the hurdles for that, so that then corporations can come in and dictate policy in their favor and shape policy. And then those corporations and those people and those families made billions upon billions upon billions, up to now trillions of dollars. And now they benefited from all of that, right? All of those really bad policies 40 years ago that really fucked us. So that's when the government law, we know that where the big split happened with the Kennedys, but then we know that the rocket ride down, the downward spiral happened in the Reagan administration for selling off the government. And this, where we live now, is what we get from policy like that. That's what happens when you sell the government off, that there is a future for that. So somewhere in hell, Reagan is still getting a laugh because he made this possible. His administration made this possible. And in the UK as well, Margaret Thatcher, they were all working together, like just as all that. But the point that I'm making is that there have been moments in the United States history that set the scene for where we are now. So it's almost only a natural progression that these money people, and I keep calling them the Epstein class because that's who they are. It's not just for shorthand, that's literal. The Epstein class now wants to reorder the world in their own favor, right? And we know through at least some emails that they've talked to each other about that, and we know that that's not like, oh, this is so new, this is different, nobody's done this before, and we are in a bit of an uncharted territory just because the circumstances are a little bit different. But this is the same thing that's been going on since the corporations have started to arise since industrialization started in the 1700s. This is what happens, and these power hungry people, the billionaire-esque of the Epstein's class of their day, tried to do this and failed because they did not have the literal capital it would have taken to do such of a thing. They could only kind of do it in this one particular area. Like, oh, we'll do it in this area for we service the railroad, or we'll do it in this one mining town, or we'll do it in this one factory area. Like, but that no matter where it was tried in the world, always failed because it ultimately was a system of slavery. So now that we have the government now is at an all-time low ebb. Like, there is no coming back from it. It's gone. It's done. You cannot recover that lost power. That's what I don't know, honestly, if the Reagan administration realized that, or if they were so in the moment that they were just only worried about getting out like fat cats and making out for their own benefit. Or if anybody ever at any point played it through and said, 40 years from now, we're fucked if we do this, because I don't care, but we are, because I won't be here. I don't give a shit, right? We don't know if anybody ever thought about how this kind of policy would ultimately shape things and be used, because this is it. Now we are at a point where the government has zero power over people, and they're actively being used to make people's lives worse. If you think I'm full of shit, point to it. When did the government in like the last 40 years do anything to make anybody's life better? Like, as people, I'm talking about the citizenry, like people or immigrants or women or LGBTQ. Like, when at any point in life has anything happened? Or like wages, like when is anything, infrastructure, name it, when is any protections for anything, like when has anything happened that fundamentally really made things better, where you have other places like China in that same span of time who are going hardcore after making their people's lives better. So it's not like, oh, it's just important, or you don't understand, or that's not how politics work. It's the full-on ratchet effect of what we're talking about here. Like, just it's a complete fucking scam of what's going on. So people, though, are still in the mindset of, I pay taxes to the government. If I do something wrong, then the government police come and arrest me, and I break the government's laws, and I go to the government jail, whatever. Well, all that shit is privatized mostly, and that's where things, got off track. It's not to say that it was better. Oh, it was so admirable and better and great and wonderful. Of course it fucking wasn't. That's not the point. What I'm saying is, you can have bad, and then you can also go to worse, and that's where we are now. We went from bad to worse. So this has set the stage for this Epstein class of people to use their extraordinary, record-breaking, uncharted territory. Nobody's ever been this wealthy that we know of. I do personally maintain that there are people who are so wealthy you will never know who they are, and going back to, like, like millions of generations, like, Medici money and Tintagels and Rothschilds and stuff like that. But, like, that's not what I'm talking about here. I just wanted to put a little caveat in there, a little asterisk there. I do think that there are people that are so wealthy that, like, we don't know anything about them. But the ones that we do, the ones that have been out in front of all this wealth movement, the ones whose names you do know, and they want you to, because these people think that they're fucking celebrities, just like the government, the members of the government, except now that is the government. That's all that they really have, is the celebrity aspect of it, because they have no power. They sold it. Individuals, they sold it. Your favorite guy, your favorite girl, she sold her power. Every bit of that has happened. And if they don't play ball, if they won't do it, unplug, replug. And now I hate to cite this, but I will, because I have done it several times, and I will do it again, which is Matt Gaetz. Fantastic Matt Gaetz, real quality, top-notch guy, Epstein wannabe. He did come out and say, after his time in government, that you would go to these mixers with PACs and with donors, right? And you wore a badge, and I don't have any reason to not believe this, because, like, this, I'm sure this is true. You wore a badge right on your chest that said, like, with a QR code on it. And if you went up and you made, like, you Shark Tank somebody, like, real fucking good, I will do this for you, I will do that for you, in my district we will this, and then we will bend this law, and then we'll change that, and we'll get that on the books. They'd be like, yeah, cool. And the donor would literally click your shit and send you money that way. Like, it was like this ultimate, like, humiliation ritual, which you think on the, like, oh man, that's like, oh, that's corrupt, that's bullshit, right? Then no, like, that's just like how things work nowadays. It's literally that fast. That's always obviously been going on, but now it's on that level. So that goes to show you there's no between. There's no, our guys talk to your guys, let's make a deal, let's back room this, like let's this, let's that. No, nobody knows about this meeting. They don't have to. They've been able to fold. There was just a story again about more Peter Thiel stuff. He's got this, like, secret cabal of, like, celebrities and government and shit like that get together, and then some celebrities were like, no, it's cool, guys, it's cool that I'm there, I just do art shit for them. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, what are you even talking about? So that their feeders are in everything and everywhere, and they are now using their vast amounts of wealth, the kind that we cannot honestly fathom. People literally cannot understand the term, like, billion from a million and trillion at all. And if you type trillion on, like, internet or whatever, that trillionaire, go and type it into something. Spell check will flag it, because that was never a thing, that commonly a thing. And our brains literally cannot fathom what that means. If it obviously is a finite number, but if you think of it as something closer to infinity than $1 million, then you'd be closer to what that is. Okay. And I'm not just talking about one guy, I'm talking about all of these people together, because now that, yeah, there's always been rich and bribes and all this going on in the government, and that was just how business was done. But that money did not exist in such of a way that it was able to now completely dictate government and policy, and that was on a much smaller level. So now, where else are you going to go except that? The government now, with the nullifying itself, has given these people this power. They have allowed this to happen to themselves. They have been active participants in dismantling the American government. Okay, like, I'm not saying that, like, oh, they wouldn't do that because of patriotism and what. No, fuck off. That's not real at all. These people who have been moved in over the past 40 years and moved in have eked away at your rights, at the world, the earth rights, at the global rights, have eked away, and then they go. And then again, why did, like, Joe Biden, like, when his son was dying, and I'm not making a joke here, but when his son was dying of cancer and he was thinking of selling his house that they all like super loved, right? Like this was their beloved family compound home. He was thinking of it, but Obama stepped in and was like, no, bro, I got you, right? Okay. Now nowadays, just a few years after that has happened, right? Joe is a multi-millionaire. What was his job? Politician. Okay, like should they be like where did the money come from, right? Like you're supposed to make this amount of money, this X amount of money, and then as president you make X amount of money. Okay, that doesn't add up to multi-millions, right? Because they're paid to serve this function. So there's only one way to go here, and the train has left the station, guys. Like this is where we're headed. I'm not saying, oh, we got to fight, we got to do something. We can't. It's done. That's done. And now this is the ultimate expression of the it's done. So we're going to end up in these city states when they expand globally, no matter what. Maybe we don't have to move into them necessarily, or maybe everything that we have now all gets torn down and new shit gets moved up and started again. And again, this is like the libertarian dream here, but it's because they're dumb. But what this is creating a slavery state, which is they openly talked about in the release of the Epstein files that we saw. This is creating a slavery state. It's already in motion. This is not conspiracy theory. And on one hand, you obviously see everything I've said in the past hour, and it's like, oh, this is really fucked. There's nowhere to go. Free will is over. Surveillance state. Here we go. No more money. That like it's all crypto. No more fire department or like robots do everything. Like, and on one hand, you got to kind of say, well, okay, if that's the way things are going, like maybe it won't be bad because like obviously things aren't working now. The United States and the population has grown to the point where it is really no longer governable by one body. It's obviously easily corruptible from like dog catcher level all the way up to the top. We know that Trump doesn't actually wield any actual power. We definitely know that Joe Biden wielded no actual power. Like, give me a motherfucking break, right? Like they weakened at Bernie's, those motherfuckers, and prop them up and juice them up with some Adderall and put a pen in their hand. That's what they do. Create controversy. That's what they do. Because at this point, we have no meaningful governmental system, although the vast majority of people will believe that we still do, and they still shoehorn boomerang right back into that. Oh, this is the new guy, this is our new guy, he's gonna do it. Do you see it with the socialists are winning? This is nothing. It means nothing. It's fucking over. Socialists aren't winning a goddamn thing. Capital has already won. And I don't like talking in terms of that are so feudalistic this way, so awful this way, but we have returned to a slave and master, king and the company society. And it's not when, it's not if, it's already happening. So I don't particularly see a way to fight it at this point. I don't think that, even because if you have like just a couple of people alone, if there was just a couple of people, say, who had as much money as everyone else, like you got nothing. You've got nothing. We have nothing, and we have been consistently going along with it. And we've had people, which is the worst and most embarrassing part of this, is we've had a lot of people like defending this shit like all along the way. Like, don't step on snake kind of people that are like out there fucking like, no, they can do, and they should, and they're great and create jobs. Like, go fuck yourself. It's not true. So that's like the worst part of it all. So we're going to hear about how great this is. This is going to be like the Ministry of Propaganda is going to hit the fucking like the go button so fucking hard on this. These city states are going to be like the greatest thing that ever happened. Hey, like, your world is all falling apart and it's chaos, and there's druggies and junkies everywhere, and homeless people are stealing, and there's all these sicknesses and illnesses, and you're gonna this and everybody's that, and the government is shit, and they're just gonna send you to jail because they took away all your rights, and now you have to live in garbage, and you don't have any jobs, and you can't eat any food, and everything's got poison in it. Over here, pretty great area. Come move in over here. Give up all your rights. No, it's in the terms and conditions. Don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. You can trust us. You'll be surveilled every time you sit down on your couch, and for how long? You'll be surveilled at whatever you watch and whatever you say and whatever you do and whoever you do it with. You're gonna be known like how long you take showers for. Oh, are you wasting water? oh, did you recycle that thing? Oh, maybe you should go into our maybe you should spend some time in our re-education unit on some things. So if like you have ever watched any like 1950s sci-fi or anything, like what this kind of shit is already like, because it seems fake, it seems like a plot, a TV plot from the 50s. It's not. It's happening. It's going. We're in it. We're into it now. This is where all the AI, power and pull is going into. Because, yeah, like I said earlier in the hour, if it was just about internet needs, we wouldn't need to have expanded more than we already were. If it was just about surveillance needs, we wouldn't have needed to expand the shit at this rate. It's about those two things, plus now instituting complete and total control over people in society to run these cities. And if there were some world where these people had good intentions, it still wouldn't fucking work, because they cannot create utopia. It does not work that way. You can't look at rich daddy and go, oh, save us, rich daddy. It doesn't fucking work that way. There is no version of that works. The only kind of utopic idea is where we have pivoted away from all of that. Nobody has to work, and we don't work on us. Everybody's got what they need, and we don't need money anymore. We work on a fundless function. We function on a currency-less society. These are a lot of words. So no, I don't want you to take this as me being any more accelerationist than I already am about everything all the time. But I do want to bring this to your attention. I do want you dialed into this, and I do want you to go and look up More Perfect Union story about this. I have a feeling they're going to be covering this quite a bit more, and they can give you some more specific details than I did today. I just kind of threw out the big names, and I threw out the big places, and I threw out what was going on. But if you go over there and check out what they've got to say, then you can really educate yourself a lot more on this and get some other names of people. This is also, at the same time, we're talking about feeding into all this. We have, why are these private equity companies buying up utility companies, all housing and all the food production and all that, that is all the same thing. So that and who owns those things when you go to the top, right? So they're letting the United States essentially flame out. They're, make the last gasp of money off of war. That your government is being wound down and nullified completely, and so that they would have even less of an opportunity to make anything fundamentally better for you, so that then they can portray these stateless cities, definitely not controlled by rich daddy, as the new way of living. And they would just sit there and tell you, oh, this is how it is. This is what progress is. This is where we're going. This is what we do. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to you. And just sign here, click agree. Just click agree, and you can have it all. But you have nothing, and it will be worse than we've ever known. And I think that honestly, we're probably realistically, there's nothing stopping the growth on this. There's nothing stopping this from happening at any rate that they determine. We are now completely in a society where the capital owns everything at this point, and they are getting richer by the minute. They're making billions of dollars on the second. As we talk, who even knows how much money these people have made at the expense of other people? And there is no fighting that at this point. So I don't have a message of hope here. I don't have, let's get together, guys, because that's not going to do it. We are fucked. We are really big time fucked in a way that not just the United States, but the world has never seen before. And I think that there's going to be some places that are able to fight it off longer than others, places like China and Russia, and places with more stringent laws and good economies. But then all these people got to do is come in and fuck your economy. Function as the government. They want to replace the government with themselves and to be one new world order, right? The emperor system. We're back to that. We're back to empire. And we use the word empire talking about governments and things like that because they kind of fulfilled that role. But now we quite literally are talking about reestablishing feudalism. We are talking about an actual literal empire, but we are talking about in terms of not theoretical, but in motion and happening, because the last 40 years of policy has allowed for this to happen. And now we are there. So for us as people, this is uncharted territory. But it's another reason that you've got to absolutely give up on the government. There's no going back. There's no helping. There's no amount of my guy, my girl, your girl, whatever. That's not going to happen. It's not going to do any good. It's wasting your time. I don't really know how to fight this, and I don't think we can. but I guess enjoy the time that you have before it takes us all over is really all that I've got for you. And I hate leaving on such a somber note, but more about this will come out. It's not a secret. It's not hidden. All of this is very much out in the open. These assholes give speeches about this shit all the time, and like these like tech conferences or whatever. This is not any kind of hiding in the dark, backroom deals. This is right out in the open, these companies that they own, and then all the companies under that they own. And I will leave you with this. I mentioned this, I think, on the last show, because a lot of the time, and it was just a few days ago was, I think, the 50-something anniversary of Rod Serling's death. And Rod Serling was, the creator of the Twilight Zone. And if you watch the Twilight Zone, a lot of the time that's about societal collapse. Whatever is going on, it's got to do with, something. Everybody gets scared, and then they tear each other apart, and then something else, and then they find out it was a false alarm. It's a very atomic age type stuff, but it's very, very relevant. And people still talking about Rod Serling is super, super important, because just because he was working in fictional stories doesn't mean he wasn't putting the information in a palatable, entertaining way in front of your face. And you can watch something super, super old and it's still good as fuck, first of all, and second of all, extremely, extremely prophetic. And I'm really glad to hear that people are still talking about him and thinking about him, because he was basically the first person to subversively say, society is fucking up here, guys. It's getting really fucking bad. Like, you think this really charming little, like this village here that you love and it's wonderful and great. Guess what happens when they get scared? Okay, they're gonna fucking tear each other apart. And almost every episode in some version of that, some version of that, like where it was like, just let me show you how fucking awful you people actually are, even though you think you're fucking great. Because at that time in the 50s, things were pretty fucking utopic in this country. So you can look to fiction at any point, because, and like I said, what's happening now sounds like a bad sci-fi movie from the 50s or the 60s, but it's true. But to be more relevant and timely here, I just was watching the latest season of Only Murders in the Building, and they had this on the last season, the most recent season. They got a new one coming out, but I mean the most recent release season. There is this story about how the mob in New York, essentially, as we all know from like history, the mob, and meaning it like in the Godfather type of a sense, was a controlling factor in basically all commerce and all functioning and all crimes and all laws, and own the police and own the government and own commerce in every possible way. That is how things functioned, for the entire history of this country, until in this last generation here. They were the controlling factor. They were the united factor throughout the country, right? Okay. Now they don't really exist anymore in that traditional sense, and it's just very small pods, this organized crime. But they don't exist in that giant network anymore like they used to. And who has taken their place is the billionaire class. Now they run everything. So even that show, that's just pretty low stakes political, made that connection that like what things used to be, who used to control things, the government or the organized crime or whatever version of that you want to say, has given way to the billionaire class. So even fiction, low stakes fiction, has picked up on that. So if that's going on at the same time as we know these city states are being built, and right there you can look to Star City, you can get a more proper list of what's going on with it specifically and in location specifically. If you look at that More Perfect Union story, which again, I think that they're going to keep on that, which is great. But if low stakes fiction is picking up on the fact that the billionaires now run everything and they're talking about it just for their own storyline purposes, you can guarantee that it's already in the zeitgeist, because it's already happening and people are already noticing it. That's why all of the industries are failing. That's why everything's being consolidated. That's why everything is falling apart, because they are reordering the world in a way that's going to suit them and fuck us all. So on that note, no words of positive wisdom to offer you, unfortunately, but I do appreciate you sticking with me and hanging out for this. I don't want you to think about it as like a rant or conspiratorial, because the information is out there. It was never being hidden. But it's just that I wanted to give you some more insight in a big way into how the government is being wound down, and how the billionaires are basically have already stepped on them and moved past any of this. And now the city state model is going to take over. It has already begun. It is already happening. Again, not any kind of secret that that's going on. This is where the AI is going. This is why there's so much data centers happening. This is why crypto is a thing. This is why your life is crumbling and nobody in the government does anything about it, because it's already been nullified and is winding down. And it's going to be used as a tactic to get you to consent to hit agree without realizing what you're agreeing to go and be part of this slavery system, this feudalistic slavery system. That will benefit these people even more, who want to reorient the world even more. Like these power hungry psychopaths, like, go to space, god damn it, like, get out of here. No, not going to happen. But that's where we are now. And we will probably talk about this more in the future as it becomes our present, and give Jared a chance to comment on that. So that said, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining me. You can, again, look up More Perfect Union Story if you want more specific information than I provided here, because I've got names and dates and locations. I also didn't want to regurgitate their story. I just wanted to let you know that they are also talking about this in a very much more precise manner than I am. I'm hopefully just like warning you. Is that the direction that I wanted to go? Just, I guess, enjoy the time that you've got now, even though things are horrible. It's going to get worse. So, and there's no hope for things getting better, honestly. I don't know what to tell you about that, but I do want you to try to take care of yourselves and each other, and look as much to humanity as possible, because that's all we've got now, and all we've ever had, and it's the only thing that works. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We'll see you next week. Jared returns, and hopefully with some interesting stories of the road, and we will see each other again. So take care, everybody.